morning and happy Halloween to you. It's spooky in here. If you've been watching over the last week on The Real Monica Adams Show, we've been showing you our fun Halloween set. Well, Mrs. Halloween, I should call her, she's back from Malta and she's brought her bag of goodies. Michelle Harmon, who many of you talked to in our comments, the moderator, my everything, she calls herself my Gal Friday. She brought a ton of new decorations in on Halloween. So I want to start the show just talking to you whether you get dressed up for Halloween. Normally I do. Today, I don't know. It might happen at some point. You never know with me. Halloween costumes. What's hot this year, by the way? I've been a little out of it not working in the news and keeping an eye and my finger on the pulse of the best costumes for your kids and for the adult parties. Did you go to one over the weekend? Are you going to dress up tonight as the little kiddos come by? Do you stand out on your driveway like a lot of people do, light the bonfire, have some drinks as the kids come by? It's going to be ridiculously cold. In fact, I was driving in and this is the first time I saw frost all over the windows, all over the cars. So heads up if you haven't walked out yet and your car was in the driveway or out on the street, you're going to have to warm it up. Do not, I've said this for years and years and years, do not leave your car, please, trying to prevent you from having your car stolen. You got to stay with the car, let it warm up. Maybe you have to use a scraper to get some of the frost off the windows. I saw that happening with one of my neighbors today. Hopefully it was in the garage and you won't have to do that. Otherwise, trust me, you're going to need a little extra time. Don't be racing like your head's on fire trying to head out of the house. You won't be able to because trust me, you've got some kind of frost on the window. In the 20s, in fact, when I was driving in, it was 29 degrees and it's going to be back there maybe in the mid-20s tonight. So a very cold one for the trick-or-treaters. Whatever their costumes are, you better load them up with some layers underneath or they're going to get frustrated. They're probably going to cry, the young ones, if you try to cover up their costumes. So it's going to be a cold one. I wish the best to all of you. I'll look at some of the comments. Again, I'd love to know if you're going to dress up when the kids dress up. Do you walk them around? Do you put them in the little wagons? Or do you stay put and you let your husband or your wife or your partner go out and take the kids out? I'd love to know what you're doing for Halloween. That's how we're going to start off this morning. And let me know what you think of the set, because we did change it around. You'll see with my guest a little bit later some of the new things that we changed. Some of our skeletons actually have masks and hats on, and we've got a huge skull in the middle of the table now. So thank you, Michelle, for your diligence and your creativity for making this set really shine. So let me say good morning to some of you. Let's see. We've got Marilyn and Rose and Sean and Leona's on. Yes, Michelle said I'm back. Sean, Kathy, another Kathy. Brian, what are you doing up? Brian and Tina, I cannot thank you enough for being the moderators over the last couple of weeks. They told me they were going to sleep in, but see, they miss it so much. They wanted to see it, but at least they're warm at home. For all of you that are waking up, let me know what you're doing for Halloween. Over the weekend, saw a lot of Travis and Taylor costumes. Yes, that's one of the things I've seen all over Facebook, and people are having fun with it. They're actually having the guys dress as Taylor and the girls dress as Travis Kelce. So yes, that's probably going to be a big one. A lot of Swifties out there. What are the horror costumes do you think are going to be? Just let us know. If you have kids and you have grandkids, let me know what they're dressing up as, and I'll keep an eye on it throughout the hour. By the way, we've got a big show on tap for you today. Our guests today are the Reverend and the Captain. That's their roles on the Stoned Apes podcast. What's that all about? Do you know about the Stoned Ape theory? What do you think about medicinal marijuana? What do you think about legalizing marijuana when that happened in Missouri? We're going to get high today. We're going to hit a high point today on the show. We'll also talk about military life, transitioning back to civilian, which we've done in the past. We'll talk about our first meeting when I hosted this series with the Grunt Style Foundation and the Grunt Style organization. And we talked about the 5th generation warfare. That's the first time I met Anthony and Danny. And today we'll talk a little bit about that first meeting and how quickly, within a month and a half time, I swear one of them drastically changed. And we'll tell you why. And his true testament, what he says, that he talked to God. I'm going to tell you, it was mind-blowing. We're going to go to all of that. There's so much to talk about today with those two gentlemen, Anthony, Danny, the Reverend, the Captain from the Stoned Apes podcast. That's coming up today. You're going to really enjoy that one. Again, if you're just tuning in, it's the Real Monica Adams Show. We're in the Invita Spooky Health and Wellness set. And before we get to our show, I just want to let you know that we are 24 hours away from literally cutting off ticket sales. Now, if you think we're going to go into Thursday, Friday, last minute people on Saturday morning, we can't. Our big event is going to be at Clayton Winehouse this Saturday night. There it is. It's all the information. 6 to 8 p.m., 7911 Clayton Road, and 100%, I can't say it enough, 100% of the proceeds from the live auction and the silent auction are going to Yuppie Puppies Forever Rescue. Come on, I'm a big animal lover. I know you are as well. So let's raise some huge funds so they can continue to do the great work that they do. They've got about 45 animals right now that have been rescued and need to be adopted out. We're going to have a couple of those furry friends with us. Jessica Cook will join us from Yuppie Puppies. Again, 6 to 8 p.m. on Saturday night. What are you going to get? You're going to get an incredible night with my team, a little motivation, live auction, and huge items. I'm talking about a trip to Gran Solmar in Cabo San Lucas. I'm talking about the most priceless Augusta winery experience that you will ever have, donated by Jerry and David Hoffman. You cannot buy this kind of an experience except at our event. We're going to have another priceless item. You cannot buy tickets to the alumni suite for the St. Louis Blues, but you can buy it that night and you can give all that money to Yuppie Puppies. We're talking about music for an event. Why just have music like Pandora or something like that where you just turn on the radio when you have parties? Live music, and I mean incredible. Johnny Chase has been on this show. He donated an item. We've got reserve tastings with a private reserve tasting with Chuck Gillantine from Defiance Ridge. I'm just naming some of the live auction items. Yesterday, we picked up a silent auction basket, and it has more in it than I thought. If you're a St. Louis City SC fan, we've got autographed items from the team, a hat, we've got a poster, we've got a t-shirt, we've got a sweatshirt. If you're or your kids are big fans of St. Louis City SC, trust me, they're going to want to come to this event, or you're going to want to buy it for them for Christmas. Think about Christmas presents, think about birthday presents, or just think about, hey, I just love you, so I wanted to buy this for you. I can't even get into it. There's so much that we're doing for the silent and the live auction. And again, 100% of those proceeds are going to our friends at Yuppie Puppies Forever Rescue. So you're going to get wine tastings, great wine tastings from the guys at Clayton Winehouse. You're going to get bourbon tastings. And then it's all about the food. Can I even begin to thank this family? Jamie and Steve and Christine Komarek from Trattoria Marsala. This is some of the food. Carpaccio, Frito Misto. And you heard, hopefully you heard the wonderful story and piece we did on Trattoria Marsala. That's the artichokes. A little chicken spadini, which that right there, you're going to have at our event. Beef tenderloins, chicken spadini, their famous ravioli. Oh, I'm talking about ravioli like you've never had before. That's the item that's always on the menu, but it's not on the menu, right? It's the secret item that's been there for a long time. Lobster risotto, the off-menu daily special. Again, for our event, we've got ravioli, chicken spadini, there you go, tenderloin sliders. We're also going to have an antipasto platter, vegetable platter. There's a little chicken soto. This is some of the food that you can get when you go to our favorite restaurant. They've been there for almost 30 years. Trattoria Marsala, and the family alone, that's the most beautiful picture. I believe that was taken by our friend Susie Gorman right at dusk. It's so beautiful there. So yeah, you can eat outside. I don't think you'd want to eat outside tonight. It's going to be cold. But inside, it is so warm and so inviting. And again, the family, the Komareks, and their dedication and their passion to St. Louis. There they are. That's in their younger days. That's Jamie on the left and Christine in the middle, and Steve. That's Steve. He went to Italy and he trained. He is the one that is the chef and the magic in the kitchen, right? And then you've got Jamie on the right there. Jamie, well known for the wine. So the pairing of all of that. And then the wonderful events that they have are put on by Christine Komarek. And Christine is incredible. See, in the chef, and then enjoying a little wine. Jamie, Steve, Christine, thank you so much for everything you've done for this event coming up, for our dream. They're such goofballs. And I love them because they really do feel like family, and they welcome you into their their restaurant like family. It's not just Trattoria Marsala, by the way. They also own Marcella's Mia Sorella, which is in the Town and Country area. So if you've never been in, please support them, because I know you're very big on supporting people that support this show. And boy, they have big time. They're providing the food. Right now, we have 72 people. So here's what I'm going to tell you. The original idea was that we would have 75 guests. So we are 3 tickets away from 75 guests. However, I've asked them, if we have a little more, can we push it? Let's push the envelope a little bit. They said sure. So they're giving us 24 hours to possibly take this up to 100. That's going to be the cutoff, though. 75 to 100 guests is what we can hold at Clayton Winehouse. Look, you're going to do something this weekend. Why not join us? Why not experience the food from our favorite restaurant? Why not have incredible wine, bourbon tastings? If you don't drink, that's fine. We can make you a little mocktail. Get some motivation and inspiration in person. Meet the people that you talk to in the comments. And then give to an animal charity. Again, Yuppie Puppies Forever Rescue. One more time, there it is. An evening with the Real Monica Adams, November 4th, 6 to 8 p.m. It's going to be an inspirational night, and a night you do not want to miss. When we talk about this on Monday, I hope we show pictures of you being there with us. I don't want to hear, I can't believe I missed it. We've given you ample opportunity, and right now I'm giving you the final 24 hours. And I do not in any way, I'm not going to come back and say, oh, okay, we've opened up more tickets. Trust me, I'm real here. Authentic. It's not going to happen. No more tickets after tomorrow at 8 a.m., okay? So go to TheRealMonicaAdams.com. That's my website. Click on What's New. That's where you find the tickets. Buy them for yourself. Come solo. Go with a friend. Make it a girls' night out, a guys' night out, couples' night out, family. There's mother-daughters coming. I cannot wait to meet you all. And this is your final warning, all right? TheRealMonicaAdams.com. Click on that page. Click on What's New. Buy your tickets. No more waiting. Please share, like, follow, tell everybody to do just that, and we'll see you Saturday nights. All right, a big show on tap. As I mentioned, Anthony, Danny, better known as the Captain, and the Reverend from the Stoned Apes podcast. I was recently on theirs. Hopefully you had a chance to listen to that. If not, we can maybe drop that link so you can hear that one. But today I'm excited to talk so many things with the Stoned Apes. They're my guest in the blue chair when we return. Envita Health and Wellness, where you can feel your best both inside and out. Envita isn't your typical med spa. They're a multi-specialty medical spa and wellness center serving St. Louis and its surrounding areas. They have ketamine for mental health and pain, IV therapy, medical weight loss, and aesthetics treatments. As board-certified anesthesia providers, Envita can ensure that their advanced treatments are provided safely with minimal to no pain. So let Envita take care of you. Call 314-394-0950 to book an appointment, or online EnvitaHealthandWellness.com. And welcome back. It is 7:13, and happy Halloween to you. Michelle, come on in here. I want to welcome you back. Come on in. Let's be real here. She's handing me my tablet. Look, she's back. And she's dressed for Halloween. We're going to talk in a little Wet Your Whistle Wednesday that we're going to tape today, and you'll see her on the show. We'll talk about her Malta trip. Thank you, and thank you for all the Halloween decorations.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Brian's actually up. I'm shocked. So Brian and Tina have been filling in while Tina was gone. And Brian, I thought you were going to sleep in on your retirement, but he's up. He just couldn't wait to see this show, guaranteed. All right, if you have any comments, any questions for our guest over the next 45 minutes, please feel free to drop some comments. Michelle will be moderating, and it looks like Brian might be moderating as well. Good to see some of you. Happy Halloween, absolutely. Wonder if Brooke will show from Carroll House. He loves pets. He does love pets, and I've invited him. So Brooke Dubman, who's provided our a lot of our set from Carroll House Furniture, I would love to see you. Looks delicious. Yes, the Trattoria food does look delicious. Somebody said, I thought you would be in costume. I know. Well, look, I just wanted to wear a little black for you. I have some costumes. Stay tuned. They may show up on the Wet Your Whistle. Tomorrow's Day of the Dead, by the way, so it could happen. Kathy said, I do too, miss her costumes on TV. hold tight, okay? If you're asking for it, I might be able to have them for you. Not in this segment, but that means you have to watch Wet Your Whistle because I do have some tricks that I'll pull out of my bag. How about that? All right? It is 7:15. Let's kick off our show today. The Stoned Apes. What's the Stoned Ape theory? Have you ever even heard of that? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about my recent episode with the Stoned Apes on their podcast. We'll talk about military life and transitioning back to civilian life. We'll talk about loss of a grandparent. That's one topic we haven't done on this show yet. We'll talk about marijuana. We'll talk about medicinal marijuana, legalizing marijuana, and a trip south and how drastically it changed someone's life. Let me bring my guest on. When I first met them, I didn't know if I'd be able to get into one of these people's hearts, but it's happened. Let me tell you what, it's happened. The Reverend and the Captain, there they are. This is Anthony, and this is Danny. Thank you for coming into our set.
Pleasure to be here.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you, by the way, for having me on your podcast, which you started how long ago?
A little over 9 months ago now.
9 months ago.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just kick off with that. The Stoned Ape theory. A lot of people said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never even heard that before. What is it?
Well, the Stoned Ape theory is all about personal development. And so the theory as it goes is that the early hominids that were roaming the earth, that they were eating mushrooms as they were chasing the game animals and other things, and they were following the food around, that they were eating mushrooms, and those mushrooms had psilocybin in it. And we have proven now through science that psilocybin will change and increase neural pathways and neuroconnectivity. And they believe that the early man, that was not as evolved as we are, that through the increase in neural pathway and connections that they evolved essentially into what we have as modern man. So in essence, the Stoned Ape theory is the evolution of man. And we thought that with our podcast, our goal was to make it about personal development, personal growth, and the evolution of man seemed to fit. And then we also happened to be quite into psychedelic therapy. So, it just kind of went together. So, and here we are.
So you wouldn't have thought it. Again, that's why I wanted him to break it down. You may not have thought that the Stoned Apes podcast would be about personal development. And when we connected and said, look, it's all about where are we mentally, physically, spiritually. Originally, when they asked me to be on, I'm like, well, look, I don't get high. Oh, Monica, it's not about that. I was like, but it could be. And I was like, no, that's not me. But yes. Could that be a thing on it? Yeah, you guys have smoked on the show. I love how you start your podcast, by the way. You do the little flick of the lighter.
Always start with
3,
click,
2,
click.
1. Click.
We have had plenty of shows that were very elevated.
Elevated. Yeah. I said we're going to hit a high today. We're going to hit a high note. And Danny, don't be worried, but there's a little something over your shoulder.
I know. It's giving me a weird look.
It's constantly watching
making me awkward.
you.
We'll power through it.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your military life, Anthony. Anthony Canania?
Yes, ma'am.
Aren't I good?
Danny,
thanks for telling me. I was like, how does he pronounce his last name? And then Danny Clayton. Danny and Anthony, how did the two of you meet?
We met in the MMA world.
Back in 2008 or 2009, I think it was.
Yeah.
I was early into my mixed martial arts career at that point. I started in 2006. And then I was, like a lot of people, I was just mixed martial arts. So it was a hybrid of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. And I was teaching a beginner Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu class, or a beginner MMA class. And Danny came in one day as a student and started teaching him. And the friendship just kind of evolved from there. And now it's been the better part of, I guess, 13, 14 years. Yeah. And we're still going.
Still going strong.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to show some pictures throughout the next 45 minutes, and I know we have a picture that will come up that is with you. I think it's in some form of your MMA, but is it with your family?
I think you're talking about the picture at the Sanchai seminar with my son.
Yes.
Sanchai is the Michael Jordan of Muay Thai.
Oh.
He is a 40-something-year-old. I think he's 42 or 43. Yeah. He's essentially still fighting because he has never lost. Yeah, that's it right there. So Sanchai is the guy to my right. Then you got my son. Then you have Superlek. And I'm not sure who that other guy was. He's somebody with the Yokao group that was in the photo. But so Sanchai is a pretty famous guy in Thailand. And when I found out he was coming to the United States, we had to go.
Had to go. How old is your son?
My son is 17. In that photo, he is 16, and I know he's bigger than me, so there we go.
I was going to say, He's going to outdo you for sure. He already is.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's the hair.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast.
Sensitive
So
subject.
Take the hat off. No, just kidding. If you're just tuning in, once again, we're talking with Anthony and Danny, the Stoned Apes podcast. And right now it is audio, but you're
Yes.
looking into making it a video
yeah,
component
we
also,
are
right?
we are moving toward video right now. For the viewers that don't know, video is a complicated thing.
Yes.
And it's also very expensive. So right now we're taking courses and we're learning how to do the videos so that when we want everything that we do to be professional.
Yes.
And we don't want to put stuff out there that isn't going to be quality content. So
Amen.
we're taking our time and making sure that when we release the video, it's going to be done right.
I love that. You have the same standards that I do. I love that on so many levels. So, Danny, let's talk about one of the things that I really connected with you on when you had me on and was very, very touching. And it's a topic I have not discussed on this show, is the loss of a grandparent, right? You were super, super close to him.
Yeah, my grandpa Clayton, he died at 96. I used to work at Boeing, and I got on the van pool ride, and my dad was on the same van, and he looked at me dead in the eye and said, "Your grandpa died." I don't know, I thought it was my step-grandfather, and he's like, "No, my grandpa Clayton." He's like, "Yeah," it just floored me. And growing up, I mean, from the age of 5 on, I go to Pennsylvania every year and hunt with him. He was my hunting buddy. I mean, even at my 20s, he and I were in the deer stand together. The last deer that he saw get harvest was by me. I mean, and that was him very, very hard to get to the deer stand, very hard to get him up into the deer stand. It was he was my hero. And when he went, it was detrimental to my mental health. I mean, it was bad.
Right, and that's the thing when I was on the show, and it was just honestly so much of being in these kind of conversations. You have this connection, your souls connect, you get chills, you get teary-eyed, you laugh. There's so many emotions that happen. The microphones go off, the cameras go off, there's your grandfather, and suddenly you're really opened up. And it's like the show after the show was really the show. And it's like, oh my God, can we turn the microphones back on, turn the camera back on? Let's go. And sometimes that's why shows become 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours, right? I mean, ours was how long?
I think I don't remember right off the top of my
Hour and a
head, but
half?
it's probably an hour and
Yeah, it was
30,
an hour
hour
and a
and
half.
40 minutes.
Yeah, because there was so much to discuss, but we could have gone on. There's a skeleton that just dropped. We could have gone on for 3 hours
Oh,
because
easily.
that's what happened afterwards. We sat and talked. And that's, Danny, when you really opened up about your grandpa. And we just saw a picture of him. We've got a couple others of honoring him. So tell me about him. Let's honor him right now.
So Grandpa Clayton served in the U.S. Coast Guard. He was actually on the USS Cavalier, which was torpedoed by a Japanese sub. Back in World War II, when a Jap would throw a torpedo at a ship, they would hit the engines first, and then they would sink the ship in the dead center of the hull. That sub only had one torpedo, thank God. So he was living in the quarters. They were sleeping at night, and if you don't know how a ship is, they stack them four men at a time on these bunks. Got hit with a torpedo, dead at night. So if you imagine being dead asleep, something rocks your ship. You're now on the ground with I don't know how many people inside this bunk, and it's panic. It's complete chaos. And he said that somebody yelled, "Get to the hatch," and they saw the hatch opened up, and it was a new moon that night. And he said he could see the moon. And that was, in what he quoted, the most beautiful sight in the world because he knew he had a chance.
Oh my gosh, right there. You just gave me a chill again. Right? And that's what we're trying to get people to understand in life. You survive something like that, and then it almost puts a whole new perspective into really living.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that. So 96 years, I'm sure he had so much incredible thought, insight to give you, to pass along to you. What do you miss most about him?
Honestly, just his presence. He had such a good vibe about him. Obviously, growing up, a father-son relationship sometimes isn't the best, which is him and my dad, but the grandfather-grandson relationship was a bond that I have not since replaced since he's been gone. I mean, he was my best friend, and just the long conversations of just the randomness in the deer stand.
Right.
That never got old. And even the very last time that we hunted, I was still hearing stories that I've never heard before. It's just missing his presence totally.
Well, and it's so many levels that's got to be really hard for you to look at.
Yeah.
Right? Just to take you back to that day. And that's the finality of it all. And that's what we never want. I will tell you, by the way, if you have kids and they go to a funeral, you might not want to let them watch the casket lower into the ground. It's something that doesn't ever leave your brain, unless it's what they want. Maybe they ask for that, but it's a difficult thing. We talk about needing support systems, and sometimes it doesn't come from siblings. Sometimes it doesn't come from a parent. Sometimes it is from a grandparent. Understand that those bonds are huge, and if you are blessed to be a grandma or a grandpa, really understand what that relationship means to those young kids. It's huge. I never got a chance to know my dad's mom. She was dead before I was born, but I've heard incredible stories about her. I knew my grandpa on both sides, knew my other grandma, who was everything to me, and you never forget those things, right? And when they're not here anymore, and do you have grandma, grandpa on the other side?
I have a grandma who is alive and a step grandpa who's alive right now.
Okay. What about you?
Both of my grandparents have passed away.
Yeah, but we sat there and we remember that. That's the thing. I was like, gosh, I've never done that topic on the show yet. I mean, we've done a lot of topics, but we haven't discussed what it means to have that bond and to have that trust, because it's fun though, because I love how people, either their aunts or uncles or their grandparents, and they always go, oh yeah, it's the best job because you get to play with them and you're the fun one and then you can give them back.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Danny and we're talking with Anthony from the Stoned Apes podcast. So again, you started this 9 months ago, and people can listen on all the audio podcast platforms?
Oh, any podcast platform, yeah. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google, Pandora, iHeartRadio, just about everything that's out there.
We're going to look through some of... There you are.
That's the studio.
Who else is with you there?
So that is one of our old co-hosts, Sam, and he was known as Sarge. And then the other gentleman there is Smoke, and he is probably our longest time fan, and he's been on the show twice. And he made a life change when he came on the show. When he came on the show the first time, he was 265 pounds.
Oh my gosh!
And he's probably in that photo, probably in the 240s or 250s. He sent me a photo the other day. He is 196 pounds. Him and his family together has lost well over 100 pounds.
What clicked for him?
So, in his words, not mine, because I'm definitely not wanting to be boastful, he came there and he was the same age as us. You know, I'm 42 years old and he was, I think, 45 or 47 at the time. And, I do my best to take care of myself, and most of us are. We're still fit, we're still active, we do diet, nutrition, exercise, all of those things. And he found that very inspirational, and he thought, well, he was at a stage in his life where he told me that it was just kind of, he thought it was over. His job was to be leading other people and helping other people that are growing up, and he had retired from the service and thought that, this is just what he's going to do. And when he met us, it was just like a wake-up call, like, if these guys can do that, so can I. Huh. And so he decided to take it on and decided to help him with diet, nutrition, gave him an exercise program, and then he just adopted it, and here we are almost 100 pounds later, and he's doing a great job. So shout out to Joe out there. He's absolutely killing it.
Absolutely. You know what? And that's the incredible thing. You never know when you go and you start to speak into this, or you look at the camera and think, who's listening? What do they need to hear today? What can I say that will change someone's life? I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? That's
Absolutely.
The beautiful aspect. Once again, it's called the Stoned Apes podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about Anthony's military life and transitioning back to civilian life, which is never easy. Understand that if you've got sons or daughters, or again, your husband, wife, whoever that you know is in the military, just keep checking in on them, right? Make sure you take care of their mental health if they'll allow you to just try to communicate. Don't try to pull it out of them, but understand that they need to know that you're there for them. We're going to talk about support system in family. And we're going to talk about a trip south that really changed this man's life. All that to come here on The Real Monica Adams Show. Think about this. When's the last time you called your doctor at 2 o'clock in the morning and he actually answered? Well, at Innovare Health Advocates, their patients are special. Their doctors, nurse practitioners, their care team care deeply about your health, your family, your work, and even your pet. Their clinicians are accessible and they lead your care in and out of the hospital. In fact, Dr. Charles Willie offers his cell phone number to his patients to ensure they can intervene early in your illness. They can provide care above and beyond, offering lab, x-ray, echocardiogram, and other treatments in their office. Innovare Health Advocates, with 5 locations on both sides of the river. Check them out, innovarehealth.com. And welcome back. It is 7:29. You're tuned into the Real Monica Adams Show, and it is a blessing for me to have you each and every day, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. right here on Facebook, or maybe you're watching on YouTube. Remember, when we're on, be sure to text people. Tell them you've probably had conversations, wow, this show has changed my life. Well, let them listen in live. If they can't, then remember the shows exist for you to watch when we're done. Let me look at some of your comments. Some of them are to you, Danny. Again, thanking you for sharing your story. I was blessed with two amazing grandmothers and grandfather. My favorite things to do were just hanging around and chatting. My grandpa was my best friend. Max is named after him. Someone said, the casket lowers, but the spirit flies high. Thanks for sharing your special memories of your grandpa. My grandma was 103. Holy cow. And it is such a special bond. When you are young, ask your grandparents to tell you stories about their youth. When they're gone, it's too late. And there's a couple other here that I saw that said, thank you so much again for sharing your story. So thank you for that. Absolutely. It is. It's a story that we probably need to go a little bit deeper into with regards to grandparents, because they are special, special souls. Anthony, thank you for your service, first of all. You were in the Army?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you serve?
Well, I served in Fort Riley, Kansas. I'm one of the few people where I stayed at my main duty station for almost my entire career.
Wow.
So I was in the active duty for 4.5 years, and I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas. And from there, I went all over the world.
Yeah, that's one thing when people decide to go into the service. They want to do it because they want to serve our country. They've got that passion in them, but then it's the opportunity to see the world. And to be thanked for what you're doing for us. But it's also scary. I mean, you see things that we will never, ever, ever be able to understand because we didn't witness that. I know that from so many that we've had on the show, from so many that have been in my family. My dad served in the Army. My brother was in the Army. I've got family galore that was in the Army. But it's that transition, Anthony, right? Isn't that the hardest thing, is how do I become a civilian when, and I think you and I talked about this, when that uniform comes off, it's like stripping off the armor and you feel naked and bare.
Yeah, I like to call it the hero to zero complex. I left Iraq at the September of 2003. And when I was in Iraq, probably in the June-July timeframe, I remember I was sitting we were out at a place called the Kaha, and I was sitting out in this giant building, talking with friends and everything. And I had made a mention to them. I said, I know that I've changed. I know that I'm not the same person that I used to be, but I don't understand why. I feel fine. And then when you reintroduce yourself back into society, back into the civilian world, all of those things become very present. So the onset of the PTSD and things like that really didn't occur until I got home. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I got home that I became really aware of what was going on and that there were problems and there were things that I needed to address. Mm-hmm. But it was early on, and a lot of those things couldn't be talked about. So
why couldn't they be talked about? You weren't ready?
No, it was just too early. When I came back in 2003, that was the initial war effort. So I was part of the group that broke the burn back in February of 2003. I was with the 1st Armored Division. We were attached to 101st Airborne. We went out. We were Battle Abu Ghraib. In fact, I ended up living in a Republican Guard compound out in Abu Ghraib off Highway 10. It was called the 270 Thunderdome. And when in those times in the military, PTSD wasn't a thing yet. Nobody had really known. So when you get back home, when I came back and I landed back in Fort Riley, they gave us a briefing and asked, where's everybody okay? What's going on? And you say the same thing that everybody else does. I'm fine. Mm-hmm. Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And the only opportunity is if it's not, they tell you that you can go down in the post, they have a mental health facility. And what they were doing at the time is they were putting people in the mental health facility under watch for 5 to 7 days or whatever the time frame may be. And the last thing that you want to do after being away at war for 7.5 months is to spend another week confined some space, even if it is in your own best interest. Mm-hmm. And so I just opted not to. I didn't talk to anybody about it, and I had to deal with that on my own. And it wasn't until a few years later that the military had really started to get protocols in place and treatment in place, and what we see now with the VA. And they're doing the best that they can, regardless of what your feeling is about the current protocol. But at the time that I went, I didn't have any of that.
Well, and So it was interesting. You said at the time PTSD didn't exist. It always existed. It just was never labeled, right? You
That's
can
right.
think of our grandparents that served. They all dealt with that, and then suddenly it became, oh, post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not just in military. All of you, you'll see or hear yourself in this story. What can the two of you say, though? Because you've been friends for a long time, and you've seen the transition in this man that I witnessed, which was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But you've seen it for years happen. Getting him to talk more and more. We're going to look at some pictures of your family because those are the people that matter most. Your children, your wife, anyone who loves you, friendships that are really like family, to get you to open up. This is your beautiful wife, right?
Yes, it is. That's my wife, Michelle.
You've been married how long?
We've been together a little over 3 years now.
But so she's watched you transition a lot. What would she say most about the man you are today to the man that maybe you were 3 years ago?
Well, I would say that we're kind of unique in the fact that we both came from a place of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've learned anything over the years, and I agree with what you said, PTSD isn't something that's new. In fact, I've realized as I've got down the road with my own treatment that I had complex PTSD. I had a childhood that was less fortunate than it should have been, and I suffered some traumas there. And so I already had trauma before I entered the service. And I think sometimes that's why people like myself do. I
You
went
run
in
from it.
Well, I don't think it's a run from it. I think that that's the guardianship of it. It's you're hurt. Somebody hurts you, and you go through life carrying that burden and carrying that pain, and then at some point you feel like you conquer it or you deal with it, and then you want to make yourself tough, and then you also want to make yourself strong for others. And I think a lot of people that go into fields of service, whether it be firefighter, military, EMS, police, these are all people who probably have had suffered some type of severe trauma, and what they're really doing is just to make sure that nobody else is going to get hurt.
Ooh, you just gave me a chill. Absolutely. Never hurt again the way you hurt me. I've heard that before, right? And police, you've met my husband.
Absolutely.
My husband wants to be truly the hero, the protection, the serving. So no child is injured, no child is abused in multiple levels of abuse. Women, domestic violence, men, domestic violence. All those things that happen behind closed doors and nobody talks about. Hush. Nobody needs to be talked about, because then someone will say, "Oh my God, you've been there too." So then finally, I don't feel so alone. I life coach, and I've been counseling a young girl that I talked to yesterday, and she's like, "It's so freeing to finally let this go and to say." So you understand what I'm going through? And I was like, there are organizations, Al-Anon, AA. Don't think that you'll have this brand on you that people will be like, "Oh, you're going to that." No, you need that help.
Right. Well, I think that's that's the premise of the podcast. That's why we started the platform. There's so many people out there that are dealing with their own trauma, their own life, right? Just like I tell my children, I'm no better at living my life than they are at living theirs. The only reason why I can help them with theirs is because I have experience at their point in life. So I've learned as I went down the road. But I think so much of us just need to be able to hear that other people struggle too. Other people are going through those same trials and tribulations too. You look at people out there and you think, well, this person's successful, they have money, they have the title or the job or whatever, and they must be all of these things. And then in this social media world that we get, they throw everything out on Instagram, life looks perfect.
Oh, yeah.
How many, like you said, life coaches, personal development coaches, people that are out there, how many of those people put all of their best foot forward? It's like, no, I don't want to see that. I want to see the person that falls on their face. What does that personal development coach do when he has a bad day?
Right.
What's it look like when he's crying in his closet?
Yes.
I want to see that, because
Thank you.
that's what I need help getting through.
Because that is the way life really is. If you watched yesterday's show, Brock Wilson was on here, and we purposely showed the video of failure 1, failure 2, failure 3, and he's because that's real. And he's like, that happens more often. And he always says, "Thank you for calling your show The Real Monica Adams." And I said, it's all about, can we all just be real? Can we creep it real? That's what this says behind me. Creeping it real. Can we please do that? Because that will bond people more. It's like, oh, you're not so perfect. No, we all are the same. We all have the same bond. I remember people saying, don't put celebrities up here. They put their pants on the same way. They put the dress on the same way. They just happen to be blessed, if you want to say so. But those aren't true role models. They've got demons. They just don't show them.
The world could be so much different if everybody would just embrace authenticity.
Yes.
If we would just be our authentic selves, good, bad, otherwise, then everybody would have the opportunity to interact authentically. And we wouldn't have all of these stigmas and the competitions that we see in society where people are just hurting each other through basically lies.
And that is why both Danny and Anthony are doing the show the way they're doing it. That's why we will continue to do the show this way. I hope that more people follow and have shows like this and platforms like this, get on stages and say things just like this, because I really truly believe that this is how we change the world. And when we know the horrible things that are happening right now, but it is a way for us to say, well, what can we do? How do we become kinder human beings? I mentioned, Danny, that you've known Anthony for a while. What's the biggest change you've seen in that man?
Oh,
Oh,
man.
Lord.
We don't have enough time in the world, Monica.
Oh, hey!
And I'm just going to get comfortable and I'll be here for a few minutes. That'll be fine.
Go back to the Stoned
Do you
Apes.
want us to roll something for you?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Probably.
Let him kick back and
At this
just
point, if
relax.
this was your show, that probably is what would happen.
I mean, I've seen him. I say it's safe to say I've seen him at rock bottom, going through relationship issues, life issues, just not knowing where he wanted to be in life. You know, it's his growth, and I have to give props to Michelle. She has helped him drastically change for the good. He's always had the potential. I've always seen that in him. That's why I've always stuck by his side. But just his mental health in the last 2 to 3 years has changed so drastically that, I mean, there was times that I was willing to get on an airplane and come back up here to Missouri when I lived in Florida to be for him, because I was scared that he was no longer going to be with us. And it was a very real scare. But right now, between experiences going down south and some other things that we've done, he's changed very, very drastically for the good.
Well, I met the two of you. Where's that, by the way, Anthony?
That is Moab.
That's-
Moab, Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm out at the Arches National Park in Moab.
So you're big into staying active. I've seen some pictures. You sent me a lot of pictures, and I was like, let's pick the ones that really resonate. You are very active. You like to hike?
Oh, yeah, I love to hike.
Being
Anything
out in-
outdoors.
Being out in nature, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And just connecting with the good man above.
Yeah, I hunt, I hike, and I overland. So, camping, hiking, hunting, anything that's outdoors and in nature, that's where I like to be.
Well, we talked about Michelle, but what about children? You're a new daddy, right?
Number
you've
3.
got,
Yeah.
you've got 3, but you have a new baby, right?
Yes, I do.
How old?
She is almost 3 weeks old.
Right, so that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah.
You've got 3 children. You have
Yes.
how many children?
Well, I have 4.
You have
I
4.
have 2 from my previous marriage and 2 from Michelle's.
Okay, and this is Danny's family.
Correct.
But
That's-
the baby's not in there.
Nope. She's not even a blink in the eye at that
What's her
point.
name?
We went with Millicent.
Millicent.
Millicent Rosemary.
Wow. Oh, I love unique
This is the
names.
first time I heard the baby's name.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
look
there
at
we
me.
go. Breaking news.
Dun, dun, dun.
Millicent, and then what are your other children?
Emmeline and Hope.
Oh, gosh. Oh, wow. That's a great one. And your children?
My son's name is Ethan, and then my youngest daughter is Dakota, and then my youngest son is Maddox, and then Michelle is an older boy. His name is Taryn.
So support system means so much. Which one is this, Anthony?
That's my daughter Dakota.
Okay, Dakota. And then who was the one that we saw with you in the earlier picture?
That was Ethan.
Ethan,
He's my
okay.
oldest boy.
And this is your wife, Michelle.
Yep.
There's Ethan. Okay, so support systems many times are right there, right in front of us at our own home. And a lot of times it's amazing how observant children are to say, hey, Dad, do you need to talk? Or, hey, Mom. I mean, I wish my father was still alive. I had so much that I need to talk to him about. And I do, right? As much as I can connect with him not being here. But I was 24 when he died. And I just look at life from now and go, oh my gosh, there are so many things I wish I would have asked him, not told him, asked him, do you need to talk about this? Like you're saying, you need to know that there's a trust factor that you can open up. I think one of the most powerful things you said to me is, I didn't trust people and I judged people. I thought it was the most powerful thing you said to me when we were off the air, and I wanted to bring it onto the show. We're going to talk more about that statement, and then what happened down south that drastically changed this man. That's coming up next. Hi, it's Monica Adams. Thank you so much for following along with The Real Monica Adams Show since we launched back in March. But I wanted to let you know there's so much more that I could do with you, your business, your corporation. Did you know that I'm a motivational speaker all around the world, as well as an MC and an auctioneer? So if you have an event, maybe a nonprofit organization, and you want to book me, just shoot me an email, info@TheRealMonicaAdams.com. Personal training, life coaching, and styling as well. Info@TheRealMonicaAdams.com.
It's the icing on the cake.
The final brush stroke.
The finishing touches make all the difference in your home, too.
Have fun and get started at carolhouse.com/room planner.
With thousands of accessories in our 3.5-acre showrooms.
Get your picture perfect room and the lowest prices in the country at Carol House.
Because you like nice things.
You know, of course, it's great to get outside and enjoy the warm weather, but when it's time to relax indoors, be sure your home stays cool with equipment and service from my friends at Aldon. 24-hour emergency service available. At Aldon, it's their commitment to continue providing above and beyond HVAC service for all of their customers. They truly care about the air you breathe. Call them today at 314-567-5585 or on the web, aldon.com. That's al-don.com, 314-567-5585. Welcome back. It's 7:45. Once again, you're tuned into the Real Monica Adams Show, and it is a blessing for me to have you with us. Thank you so much to all of you, because this show wouldn't exist if all of you weren't watching, and if we didn't have those wonderful sponsors that you've been hearing about. So thank you to each and every one of you. And if you know someone, by the way, that wants to be a part of the show, aligns with our mission, it's not just anybody we allow on this show. You have to align with our mission and want to give good to the world. Shoot them an email. Tell them to email me, info@TheRealMonicaAdams.com. Again, we're talking to the captain and the Reverend of the Stoned Apes podcast. And before we get into more of your comments, where did those titles come from?
Well, I was an ordained minister many years ago, and so I felt like I had the call to preach. And then I also teach at college, so I'm a teacher by trade. So the Reverend was the best descriptor of both teacher and preacher. And so voila, here we are.
I love that. And
so I am a licensed U.S. Coast Guard captain. I have my OUPV license, so I can charter boat charters and what have you. So that's kind of how it came about.
All right, there's the Reverend, there's the captain. So Richard Melching Sr., who watches the show on a regular basis, he said he got off 21 meds to get on medical cannabis 8 years ago, had to do a 3-week cleanse last month. His tolerance, he said, was getting too high. He lost over 100 pounds and feels great. He said medical cannabis saved his life. Now, again, everyone has viewpoints on, I don't care. That's not what this show's about. I'm not about drama and negativity. So you can say, I believe in medicinal marijuana, or you don't, or the whole aspect of legalizing marijuana. So go ahead. The platform is yours. What's your viewpoint? No, because I want you to be able to say this on, well, first from the medical standpoint.
Well, I think the first thing that I would like to tell people is, if there's a statement that I can make, is we have the stigma in society where people are turned off because they call it drugs. And the one thing that I would like to say, if you think the pharmaceutical drugs that you get issued when you go to the doctor isn't a drug, some of these are very powerful narcotics. If you're
very addictive.
If you're on Arcan or any of these opiates, why do you think the heroin addiction is so high? Right. It's because they get prescribed legal opiates. You get addicted, and then you move out of that space, and when they restrict your ability to get it, you become a heroin addict. So we have all of these people out there that are addicted to these drugs. With that said, a lot of these drugs also come from plants, which means that's the root for the discovery of whatever healing modalities. They take away the chemical compound and they use that. So cannabis can be a very healing thing. I don't support too much on the recreational use side. I believe that this is medicine, and you should use it responsibly with intention as medicine. But there are a lot of plants, whether it be cannabis and other psychedelics, that have great healing properties that, when used responsibly, they're not highly addictive. They're not at risk of overdosing. In fact, when I was at the psychedelic conference this past weekend, there was a Dr. Siegel. He is a doctor of psychology at Washington University. He showed this chart that has showed addictive properties on one side, on the y-axis, on the x-axis, it basically had is what's the potential of being able to overdose in this medicine. And when the very lowest to the far left was psilocybin, then above that was cannabis. Cannabis is more addictive and more likely to be lethal as dosage than psilocybin would be. But to the far right of that was caffeine. To the upper right of that was alcohol.
I knew you were
And then you get into heroin and morphine. But they are a long way down the spectrum from something like cannabis. Cannabis is relatively a non-addictive property, and it has a lot of healing properties associated with it, and it's almost impossible to overdose on it. So some of these things that I believe we have out there is just the rollover from the war on drugs. And I don't think it's based in reality.
So it's the stigma of it all, which is really where people, if they start to talk about it, it's like, oh, you're talking about marijuana. Nope, don't do that. And again, but then some people, they get introduced. Sometimes they want to start and they're like, well, okay, maybe I'll do CBD. I hear that that's okay. Maybe I'll do some gummies. And then they're like, well, then what's going to happen to me? I think it's the unknown, right? They're a little worried about.
Well, one of the things I'd like to say to your audience that I would really like to challenge is, when you look at what these drugs do, cannabis exactly, cannabis is a mild psychedelic, and it also has neuropathic properties, which means that it can create new growth in the brain and change brain pattern, okay? With that being said, that means it can also be a dangerous substance. If you're somebody and you're going to these substances and you have a history of trauma, if you're using it as a coping mechanism, you're trying to run away from things, it will reinforce those things. That's what it does. But if you use it with the intention of healing, if you use it in conjunction with therapies, if you use it as a medicine, then it also has the potential to change these things because it'll change your neural pathways. So if there's people out there that have like, well, my buddy got hooked on cannabis and the next thing you know, he was a stoner and a dropout. Well, he probably suffered from depression to begin with. He probably wasn't on a path of personal improvement. There were things that were happening that allowed that medicine to be used inappropriately that caused those issues.
As a mask.
Yes.
Right? It was
Absolutely.
masking what was already there.
They don't make good coping mechanisms.
No, absolutely. Well, Richard Melching just said, I don't like the fact that recreational marijuana is sold at my pharmacy, and that's the way I look at it. Interesting. So again, if you have any comments on it, feel free to let us know. So you're talking about different levels, and I just wanted to put that out there. Whatever, if you have some thoughts on it, feel free to say so. But we're talking about another level of some experiences that the two of you had. You and I, we're going to get to Anthony's in a second. Danny, you and I talked after the show that I did with you wrapped up. And then we talked about a really powerful experience. Will you go there with me?
Absolutely. So earlier we were talking about my grandpa Clayton.
Yes.
Before my experience, I could not talk about Grandpa Clayton without just shutting down, crying, whatever the case may be. I did not deal with grief whatsoever. So I was introduced to a mutual friend of all of ours about a ceremony that they called a hape ceremony.
Hape.
And it's a root of a plant. And
it's a tobacco.
It's a tobacco. And basically they have different strains that do different psychedelic capabilities. And this was it was almost like a shaman. It was very ceremonial based. The intentions were set. You do have to smoke marijuana beforehand, which I'll admit was my first marijuana experience ever. And
this was when, by the way?
2 months ago?
Yeah.
Maybe a month before we...
Oh, so that was your first experience?
Yeah.
See, you think that they're on the Stoned Apes podcast and all they do is sit there and smoke.
I'm
That's
generally
not
the sober
case.
one.
Ah.
But, no, so you...
Were you worried about it?
You know, I had nothing to lose, so I just went at it with open mind.
Ah.
You know, and honestly, being a somewhat straight-laced person, I could tell if is this bullcrap or is it going to be something positive. I had no previous intentions or anything to compare it to whatsoever.
So what did your wife or your family say when you said, I'm going to do this?
Well, my wife was very pregnant at the time, and I don't think she was too happy I was off the grid for the 4 hours.
You're going to do a Cheech and Chong
right.
moment.
But so we went ahead and we did the ceremony, and before we did it was an experience, I'll tell you. And the gentleman who did the ceremony for us did a guided meditation for us. Mm-hmm. So he did the meditation. He said, okay, the part where you were just mostly in depth with, that's where you need to be. And then at the end of it, or in the middle of it, he had us go walk through a field and all kinds of stuff, but we saw a child. And he's just saying, you see the child, you walk to the child, you meet him in the middle of the field. That child is you. Now turn around and walk back out. So it was a very long meditation. He said when you were at that child, that mentality where you can almost feel the grass in your feet, that's where you need to be for the hape. Mm-hmm. So then we went into the hape portion. So I did the medicine, lay down, and it was like a transition snap. And the first thing that I see is a medieval castle. There's my wife that is in a white linen dress, and she has her hair done like a Viking ponytail. It was very different. It was so beautiful, so happy. And they told us that you'll always fight your ego during these experiences. If it tells you need to die, you literally need to die. Like, you have to fight your ego and just let things happen. And I remember looking at everything saying, oh, everything's so beautiful. I'm just so happy. It was just such a weird presence of just love. And I was fighting my physical state of being relaxed. That's the biggest thing, because even though you're in this psychedelic realm, you're very aware of your physical being. So where she's guiding me through this field, my daughters are there now holding hands. They're jumping around like ding-a-lings and laughing and giggling. And I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. But I wasn't smiling. So then I finally let myself smile. And it was like a purge. I just started bawling. And it was just insane. Like, not crying. It was just like someone turned the waterworks on and tears are coming through my eyes. And as soon as I did that, scene changed. I'm in my family farm in Pennsylvania. We're walking down a specific part, and my grandpa Clayton is in his hunting clothes with his hand behind him, staring at me, and walking me through the valley towards our deer stand. And there's music playing. And so we were walking through the valley, which is surrounded by woods, and the lyrics of the song say, "Don't be scared of the spirits, let them guide you through the woods." What the odds of that at that exact moment, can't tell you, but it was pretty crazy for me. I'm like, what the? So we're walking through the woods, and I can remember just feeling just this warmth, this happiness. I'm like, I'm with my grandpa again. Boom, scene change. I'm back at the cabin. My grandpa's wife, is there now. She passed away about a year after him. She looked beautiful. She was happy. There was an aura about her. We walked around our lake. She was fishing, and it was just the most beautiful experience. As soon as I got just that comfort, boom, scene changed. I had another grandpa who passed away when I was 9 years old. He was my first hero that died, and I don't think I knew how to deal with grief. And the child that I saw in the guided meditation was now me. That was me there standing in front of my grandpa at 9 years old. That's where I lost. Like, my emotions took over me. I was weeping like a child. And there's always a purpose behind these experiences, and that was the first thing in my life that I have buried. I've taken that grief and just pushed it down and never dealt with it again. And as soon as I started getting my wits about me, scene changed. All three grandparents are holding hands in a triangle.
Wow.
Me and my wife are dancing in between them. I was just like, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world. And then boom, scene changed. That circle got bigger with my daughters. I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Boom, scene changed. My pregnant wife is now not pregnant, and there was a son holding hands, which suck because I got a daughter.
Hey!
I'm happy. No, I'm not playing. I'm joking. She's amazing.
And first trauma for that child when she watches this 2 years from now.
Don't ever show her the show.
But so after we came out of it, it's only like a 40-minute experience through the hop A, and I came out of it, and I had this weird acceptance of grief, of death. There's no longer this, I can't talk about it. And I've never done a psychedelic in my life. And that was what I got out of my first experience, that I can literally talk about Grandpa Clayton, Grandma Clayton, and had no idea I had that balled up from Grandpa Grass from when I was 9 years old. So those three people that were so dear to me in my life, now I could talk freely and proudly with an acceptance of death.
And it's a powerful thing on so many levels to accept that, to not be afraid of it. There's so many people that when they're near that's what they say is, it's beautiful. Don't be afraid, right? It's this transition. You had a chance to kind of walk through that, see that. But also for men, and I think hopefully you've heard this message throughout the show today, men, please be willing to talk, to communicate, to show emotions. And we had that yesterday on the show. Brock was talking about the importance of showing that and communicating that and not being afraid of that. Because many times, depending on the generational thing, guys are told, don't show emotion.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I love that. It's okay not to be okay. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. There are people, again, that are going to see that going, well, I want to be okay. And so that's the thing, is that we'll put things out there to say, well, maybe there's something that you want to try. Maybe there's a person that's there that is your support system that you didn't realize was your actual support system. Sometimes people feel like, I don't want to burden my husband, my wife, or my kids, and so that's why they shut down. But then maybe there's a guy friend that just opens up a little bit. Like you said, you saw this transition in Anthony. Let me go there. So Anthony and I met at where we talked about a mutual friend, Grunt Style Foundation. They held this beautiful roundtable discussion, a panel discussion. There's the Grunt Style guys, by the way. So Tim is on the right, and then of course there's Anthony. You've got Boone Cutler, who is the second from the left. Boone is the one that we had on the show with Tim, and we talked about the Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. And we wanted to have people in the audience that were far right, left, in the middle. Would they hear what Boone had to say about what is happening in our world, what's happening in these little things that we hold in our hands, and how these could be demons to work against us, what it does to our minds, and how that truly is the war that we're in, that we're fighting right now. Did you walk away from that changed?
From the 5G warfare?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
In what way?
I'm more aware. These are all things that, and I shared that in the Compass event, these are all things that I was aware of individually in their own places and spaces, but what I hadn't done together is put it together. I didn't realize the strategy behind it and how multi-layered it was. I didn't understand until Boone described that it was a psych ops, essentially, that these are the same things that they do when they go into countries, and when you send in psychological operation units and you're thinking, I want to throw over this country, there's a guideline, there's a workbook to that, and that's what they put in place. And when he laid out that this is exactly what's happening here through our media, through our social media, through the interaction that we're getting, the information from our government, and then you start to see that, and it paints such a clear picture, well, that makes you very aware of the dangers that you're facing.
Well, it's interesting because I went to that. I was blessed to be the host with these gentlemen on stage and heard what people had to say, asked different questions, etc. And on the panel was Anthony. Now you look at Anthony, strong guy, military guy, hat on, tattoos, right? You can look and go, okay, can I get to him? Can I soften him? You have a smile on your face now when you didn't have back then. You were like stoic. And I was like, okay, well, this is one guy that I don't know if we're going to connect, but I hope so. At the end of the conference, we introduced ourselves to each other. They said they had a podcast. I said, I have this show. Let's have each other on each other's show. We said we were going to do that. I didn't know what would happen with it. I go to do the interview with them, and I literally walked in and I was like, who's this guy? Because this is not the guy I met a month and a half or 2 months ago. What I didn't know is that you had been somewhere, and boy, have you been somewhere.
Oh, like, yes, absolutely.
Your transformation, you truly believe that you talked. Actually, you say it as
the source.
The source.
Yes.
And why the source?
Because I believe that we're all fragments of the source and that it's an all interconnected web of energy. And that's the best descriptor that I can put to it. If you put the identifier as God, that's making it a separate entity, something separate of yourself, and that's not a oneness. That's not what I believe to be the truth.
Gotcha. But and one of the things that I want you to understand on this show is whatever your belief, none of us are going to push anything on anyone. It can be God, it can be Jesus, it can be the Holy Spirit, it can be the source, it can be whatever it is for you. I just hope that there's something that you allow to guide you, that there's something that you lean in on. So you went south.
Yes.
Now your experience is on another level from what Danny said.
Yeah, well, what Danny did was a hape ceremony, and it was basically a soft introduction to the world of psychedelics. You have multiple levels of psychedelics. You can start with hape, which again is a very powerful tobacco. And for the listeners at home that are thinking, well, this is smoking a cigarette, it's not. This is a very powerful substance that can produce psychedelic effect. And so can cannabis at super high levels, and when you combine them together, you go. Then you have MDMA, which is ecstasy, and you have psilocybin, which is mushrooms, and then from there it goes up. And then ayahuasca is the grandmother of all of the psychedelics. There are more powerful psychedelics, but in the world of healing, this may be the most healing, the most powerful healing property that's
ayahuasca.
There. Yes. And
illegal
so I did,
in our country. Right?
Definitely 100% illegal in our country. It is a South American tradition. It steeps from Peru and the Shipibo people in Peru. And it's something that this culture has been doing for thousands and thousands of years. They do it in Colombia as well and other areas in South America. But it has been a long-held psychedelic medicine. They believe it's a guide. They believe that they call it Mother Ayahuasca or Mother Aya or sometimes Grandmother Ayahuasca. They believe that it is an entity that is intelligent, that works with their people.
And you are introduced to that from a mutual friend that says, I think that this is a journey that you should walk. And
Absolutely.
And do you fight it in your mind? Where do you go with it before you actually take this trip?
Terrified, excited and terrified. I was first introduced on the Joe Rogan show. I heard Joe Rogan talk about DMT and ayahuasca. From that, I followed like Aubrey Marcus and heard a little bit. And then Expedition Unknown shot an episode, which I shared a clip to our Facebook page. And it was his show that really sparked most of my interest. He was a practicing Catholic at the time. And then when he went into his ayahuasca experience, what he had seen, what he was shown, really made an impact on him. And it completely kind of shifted and transitioned his whole space. For me, I didn't know what to think. I was terrified. I thought it was going to be the most intense psychedelic experience of my life. But at that point in time, I would lean, my spiritual beliefs were more toward atheist. I was open to the idea of like a scientific energy that was out there that we could manipulate or manifest with, that we could utilize, but I didn't necessarily believe it to be spiritual. So I really had no expectations on that. I just thought I was going to go in and get some healing, but I was so desperate for healing at this point that I was willing to try just about anything. Nothing else was working. For the listening audience and for those that don't know, I'd suffered from cyclical depression for the better part of 10 years, and back in 2016 is when I hit my rock bottom. The first time that I had made the point of actually being suicidal. And the core of my suicide existed from an existential crisis. I didn't understand why I was here, what the point of all this was. So when you go through life and you have the trauma that I've had, and you deal with the trials and tribulations of life, when you get to your low moments, you got to ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Why? What is the point? And at my lowest point, this would be hard not to get emotional. I
never feel sorry for being emotional.
I really, I was at a space to where I couldn't believe that I had brought my children into this. And so I was laying in bed one night with my son, and obviously I was already suicidal myself. And this overwhelming urge came over me that the greatest thing that I could do for my family was to kill my son, go down the hallway, kill my daughter, kill my ex-wife, and then kill myself.
Oh my goodness.
And thankfully, I didn't do that. Instead, I picked up the phone and I called my man, the captain here, and he talked me off that ledge.
This was how many years ago?
It was 2016.
Yeah.
But the important part of that story to understand is that never went away. These are neural pathways that we do, and they're like highways. And you create these highways, and once you create a highway, it becomes a fast lane. And I was cyclically depressed, so I could be the happiest person you ever met at 11 a.m. I could be on cloud 9, and by 7 p.m. that evening, I'd be sitting on a couch with a gun in my hand and thinking about blowing my brains out. And at my peak, I was doing that 2 to 3 times a week.
I was just going to ask you how often.
Yeah. And
can I ask this? In that moment, at a very dark moment, and by the way, thank you for sharing that, because it takes someone really okay with who they are and the path that they've been on to share that kind of a story, that rawness, that realness. So thank you. As a human being, thank you for sharing that. But what do you think, now, by the way, after you've gone through your experience south, what do you think stopped you from doing that?
I think fear of the unknown, fear of missing out, fear. A lot of it was responsibility to the people that were in my life. I think the biggest part of it was my children would have to grow up without a dad, and my spouse would have to live without a husband, and my friends would have to live with a friend no more. And I got to see that because being ex-military, I unfortunately know a lot of people that have taken their own lives, and it was the fallout. And as much as I hated myself, as much as I hated my hurting, I couldn't justify putting that type of pain on someone else, because by running away from my trauma, I was giving trauma to other people that I truly cared about.
Right, and that's the thing, you know, again, if anyone is in that space, and there are a lot of people in this world that go to that darkness and have thought about ending their life because they feel like everybody else that's here would be better off without you there. But then it's also the darkness, and this is why we do this show and why they do the Stoned Apes podcast, why this transformation has happened, is to believe in something better, that there is hope, that there is possibility. I mean, you were in the absolute darkest cave with no pinhole. There's a little light in here. You would have liked to have seen some of the light that are in these curtains, seeing something, any kind of hope and possibility that exists there. You were not only in a dark spot of taking your life, but the stories that we have all in the news told, the horrific things that we started your day with, these real things of domestic issue that happens and the entire family's wiped out. You were almost that person.
Absolutely.
You're sitting here in my chair right now where you almost took your entire family. What stopped that?
The phone call.
But what made you make the phone call? There's something in you that had to have gone, again, and I'm trying to get right now to the people who are thinking of doing that exact same thing.
The love for my children.
Good.
As much as I was hurting, the love that I had for them was greater than the hurt.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't do it.
And I'm so glad you didn't. I'm so glad you're here.
Me too.
I really do. I mean, this is the thing. A lot of people, you all follow me. You all know I end my shows with devotionals, which we're not going to do just yet. You know I'm faith-based. I was raised Catholic. I have this beautiful spiritual connection and connection with God, Jesus, etc. That's my walk. That's my path. But we all have to have a path that brings us to love. And that's the whole thing, is love for oneself. Right? We have to love ourselves first and then have this amazing love that we want to spread beyond that in our family and our friendships. I want to take a break again. I want you to hear this next part of the story, which is what happened down south and how it's truly allowed this man to have this aura about him that I am seeing now. I want you to share. This is a really powerful show today. Please share this with anyone that's struggling. Please get to them. Maybe if they're in that dark space and that was the day that they think they were going to take their life or harm someone else, then maybe they'll hear this. They'll hear the hope and possibility. We'll have more on Anthony's story when we return. Envita Health and Wellness, where you can feel your best both inside and out. Envita isn't your typical med spa. They're a multi-specialty medical spa and wellness center serving St. Louis and its surrounding areas. They have ketamine for mental health and pain, IV therapy, medical weight loss, and aesthetics treatments. As board-certified anesthesia providers, Envita can ensure that their advanced treatments are provided safely with minimal to no pain. So let Envita take care of you. Call 314-394-0950 to book an appointment or online, EnvitaHealthandWellness.com.
Yeah, it's almost the same.
That's okay. It's a real show. No, you don't have to go shh, shh, shh. It's real, right? We're not so perfect. I love the fact that it's imperfect. No one's ever going to have a problem with the fact that we're talking coming out of a break. Welcome back, by the way. It's been a really powerful, very real, one of the most real shows that we've ever had. And I just have fallen love with these two men that I've met in a short time. And that's the thing. We are on this earth for a very short time period. So please reach out of your comfort zone and talk to someone that you think maybe you wouldn't connect with, right? You're walking down an alley. This guy looks mean, military. Oh, let's talk about tattoos, by the way. And then I'm going to look at some comments. I've never been a tattoo person. It's not my thing, but I'll never judge. In fact, I'm more intrigued by what makes you start. And usually when you start, it's never just one. I don't know. There's a few people that have just one, but what was your first?
My first tattoo was a dragon that I had on my right arm, and it was the example of everything you should not do when you get tattooed. I was in the military, and I wanted to go get this dragon tattoo because it was cool. And, you know, I'm a young kid. I was like 20, 21. And so I go to the tattoo shops down in Manhattan, Kansas, outside of Fort Riley, and they wanted $600 for a tattoo. Well, I only made $800 a month. So this was a lot of money back in the day. And so I found this guy at a bar who had, moved.
It's that kind of story.
He had moved from North Carolina, but he was a licensed tattoo artist. And he said, I can do this tattoo for you. I'm just not licensed to practice in Kansas yet. And so I got a $100 dragon tattoo in his kitchen in a trailer park in Kansas.
Oh, my God.
And it looked every bit
Like
as
a
good
cat?
as that sounded.
Oh, yeah.
It was amazing. It was the greatest. So that cover up
Is
later.
that it, or you have removed?
This
Okay.
is the cover up of that tattoo. The dragon used to sit in this space here, and this was done by a wonderful artist named Tony Klug out of St. Charles, Missouri. And so getting
How
bad.
did you think that was going to go right?
He's got his moments.
My
fault him for that.
my youth was not filled with a lot of exceptional wisdom.
This is your leg, right?
Yeah, that's my leg tattoo. That's a tattoo artist by the name of Mark Skipper. He's a fantastic tattoo artist out of St. Louis, and he did my leg piece for me.
You have how many now?
I have 6 or 7 tattoos. I'd have to count them to be sure, but I think 7.
Normally, when I hear people say why they've gotten them, I'm like, okay, I get it. Now, it's not me. I wouldn't have it. I would, if it was in memory of someone or whatever, or to honor someone, I'd probably have like a piece of jewelry or something made. But I get why people do it. So you're drawn to something. Sometimes for guys, it's like it's cool.
I think for me, it's. And again, I got tattoos at a point in my life when I wasn't spiritual or religious, but because I was an ordained minister at one point in my life, I always believed that the Bible said the body was a temple.
Yes.
And when you go to ancient temples, what's on the walls? Inscriptions, right? They tell stories. And I wanted my temple to tell a story.
Interesting. So see, I'm glad you just said that, because my mindset was always different. It was the body was a temple and it shouldn't have anything on it. That's interesting that we have. See, I love different viewpoints. You have a tattoo?
Absolutely, I have 3
3 tattoos.
I have a half sleeve, and my whole back quarter of my left shoulder is tattooed as well.
You know they do have sleeves you can just put on.
Yeah.
And take off. I'm just kidding. No, I just wanted to go there. So tattoos. Again, what I want you all to do is to stop judging. Just because someone has a tattoo, they're still a good human being. They might look different. They might have tattoos all over. There are people who have tattoos on their eyelids. They have tattoos on their heads. But you know what? They still might have a heart of gold. And we have to get to a place where we stop judging the book by its cover. Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things.
1000%.
Before you share your story, and it's a powerful one, by the way, someone said, praying for anyone that's going through this. That's what Pamela says. Kathy said, powerful. Thank you for sharing. I know this discussion is helping others, which, by the way, it's interesting. We went to the commercial break and Anthony's like, uh-oh, this is not going to be good. you thought. This is a great community that we've built here. There are many people who say, okay, let me just listen. Marijuana, experience, relaxation, and laughter sounds like a win-win to me. I like this guy.
It has perks.
Someone said I like this guy, and I don't think I have the most recent in here because it's bouncing back and forth. Michelle said, whoa, Reverend, thank you for sharing your story. I'm bawling over here. See? Nothing negative. But we always are scared of what we put out there because we think we're going to be judged. Not one piece of judgment. I love that. Okay, your story went a whole nother level higher. And when I said I saw this guy that I didn't think I could get into, we kind of did. We shared a handshake and said, let's have each other on each show. Didn't know how the show would go. It was, again, that's why I wanted people let go of the judgment. Walk in. By the way, I walked in, and his studio is awesome. I walked downstairs, and I'm like, let's take pictures and video. And you're like, whoa, watch out. There's naked women on the wall. I'm like, it's okay.
To this day, you were the first person that has videoed the studio.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I should have dropped some of that. Maybe I will. I'll share some. I'll blur it.
Yeah, I was like,
absolutely.
Okay.
I have no worries.
I love what you've done. That's not your studio, though. Where is that?
No. That is Four Brothers Mead.
Oh, okay.
That was a remote that we showed.
Sometimes you'll do your show on location, right?
Absolutely,
yes.
yeah. That was a locational shoot that we did down in Festus, Missouri at a place called Four Brothers Mead. That was a fun time.
Oh, they're right there on Main Street.
Correct.
They're down from Main and Mill.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes, they're the first ones in town that made mead wine, by the way, if you've never had it before. Ah, that's a cool. Okay, I'll have to go by and visit them. So you are, again, if you want to watch, eventually they'll have video, but if you want to listen, all the audio podcast platforms, find the Stoned Apes podcast, again, about personal growth and personal development. It's not what you probably thought it was about. It's not about just a bunch of guys drinking some whiskey and getting high. It's a lot more.
Not all the time.
Yeah, not all the time.
Just start the Monica episode. Don't start episode 1. We've grown so much in that time frame.
Anyone out there listening, skip through episode 10, please. Just skip the first 10 episodes.
I was going to say 20, but
those will be behind a paywall at some point for
you
the most
said that
hard.
To me when I met you.
For the most hardcore
Don't listen
fans.
to our beginning. I'm like, no, I want to. Look, all of us. I like to listen back.
We started with a single USB microphone in the middle of a table with 3 people sitting around it yelling at it.
That's great.
That is where we started to the podcast equipment that you see that we have today. It was very rudimentary, and we all had some learning curves to go.
But you know what? You miss out if you don't see the beginning, because then you see the growth. It's what this is all about. I love to look back at our first shows back in March, and it was done on a phone at my house, and then we grew, and then we came here, and we got bugs in the microphones. We've got gremlins all over the place, so we swear someone trying to take us down, and I'm like, try it. It's not happening. We're still here. And we're not stopping. We're not slowing down anytime soon. So, yes, go back to the beginning. Listen to the beginning ones, and just listen to the growth of it. What number episode am I? Do you remember?
I do not.
Oh, that's a great question. I think 40 or 41.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say 39, 40.
Somewhere in there.
So look for that, but listen to that one. It's a really good one. So we shared a lot of things on that show together, but one of the things that happened when the mics turned off was this continuing conversation that happened about your ayahuasca experience.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are a little nervous, a little scared, also a little excited by it. You decide to go, and going into it, what do you think is going to happen?
I have no idea. I'm terrified. All the stories you hear about ayahuasca, the biggest things that you hear is about the purging. There's a lot of people that are throwing up. Sometimes people defecate themselves.
Oh.
It can be a very traumatizing experience. And so I think I was scared about that. Mm-hmm. And then the idea of visions sounds okay. Like, I listened to a lot of people talk about, and I went through this tunnel of light, or I felt like I was going to blow into a million pieces. But until you're there, until you're in that moment of realization to where this is your reality, you have no idea how terrifying that is. And there was a lot of things that I thought I was ready for that I simply was not. Mm-hmm. When we go in, you're sitting in a circle of people, and then the shaman will call you up, and then you set your intentions at the beginning of the ceremony. And I walk across the mats and I kneel in front of them. And then, he asks me what dosage I want and whatever. And then when that tea gets sit in front of you for the first time, all of my military experience, all of my fighting experience, everything came into play in that moment, because the fortitude it took to have the courage to drink that cup was up there. And I took that drink, and I went back and I sat down, and from there it was time to go.
It was a wild ride. Can I ask, by the way, because I didn't ask you then, what were your intentions?
My intentions the first night, I said for 3 nights. Mm-hmm. So my intentions changed based on the night. The first night I didn't have a whole lot of intentions other than just a knowing. I just wanted to know what it was, and I was very open to whatever that was going to be. I didn't even know really where to start with myself, so I just kind of trusted in the medicine, and it was going to trust that it was going to give me what it is that I needed, and I really didn't know what it was that I needed, so I just went into it with a really open mind without a whole lot of expectation, and was just searching for some type of healing or knowledge that I thought I could get.
Bring me the healing that I need.
Exactly.
Right. So you mentioned that you are able to say what dosage. What do you say?
The first night I went with what they call reasonable. There's a sensitive, there's a reasonable, a feasible, and the full dose. And so my first night I went up for a reasonable. After about an hour and a half, I went up for a second dose. So my first night I ended up with a little bit more than a full dose with both servings. Mm-hmm. I started out kind of in the mild way, but I knew I shouldn't have done that. My tolerance for most things, whether it be alcohol or other types of drugs, is usually pretty high. Mm-hmm. I'm Irish, so
chalk it up to the Irish.
I probably should have went with a heavier dose to begin with.
So you don't know what to expect. You hear some things, and you do this 3-day thing, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have a long enough show to be able to tell this whole story, so we're going to have to give you the shortened version of it. What happens to you on night 1?
Well, night 1 was probably the most important night for me. Night 1 and night 3 specifically. Night 1, I started dying. They tell you at the beginning that nobody has ever died from this medicine. They give you some parameters to go by, like, always remember that you're here, you're in a mat, you're not gone. And you have no idea what any of that means contextually. And I was laying there on the mat waiting for the medicine to kick in. And when I had my Hape ceremony with Danny, one of the things that I had taken away from that was fear. Said that I had to overcome fear. And no understanding of what that meant, because I thought I was a tough guy, and I was like, what am I afraid of? And apparently a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I was laying down on this mat, and my body went numb, My legs went numb and everything. And when I mean numb, I'm not talking like your hands fell asleep. I mean unable to feel your body, numb. Not paralyzed, numb. And I remembered the scene in Tombstone with Doc Holliday when he said, "Oh, that feels weird." And, immediately I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." And, and then a few minutes later, I found myself gasping for air. I started breathing, and I realized that I'm going through moments of not breathing. And I started getting really scared because I thought, well, I'm going to die. Like, this isn't good. They say nobody dies from this, but there's always that one out of however many.
Sure.
And I thought, well, here we
This
go,
is it. This is me.
And so what would happen is as I would approach these things, I would start hearing two things. I would start hearing beetles scratching, like a medicine scratch.
Did you see that?
You saw it too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay. And
Things
then
happening over here.
it's all right. I'm used to it by
Calm
now.
down, Grandpa Clayton.
And then I
Little
would
Tombstone just moved, by the way.
I would hear this low rumble, almost like a thunder, almost like a train, and it was moving toward me. And it would get really close to me, and then I would get scared, and it would leave. And it would get really close again, and I would get scared, and it would leave. And this goes on. And mind you, the whole time that this is happening, I'm numb, and I'm noticing that every few seconds I'm not breathing. And I'm fully cerebrally aware, so I'm not tripping or anything like that at this point. And
I think that's where people are going to go that are watching or watch this later. They're going to be like, this guy was just tripping for 3 days.
I was waiting for the medicine to kick in. At this point, I was fully sober, completely sober. The only thing that I was experiencing was my body was numb, and I was starting to interact with whatever this movement was. And that goes on for about an hour and a half. And finally, long story short, I had to get to a space to where I wanted to know more than I wanted to be alive. I had to overcome that fear of death. The first lesson that ayahuasca taught me was overcoming the fear of death. And there's a lot of people that believe that what's happening when the DMT gets secreted, that they believe that your body secretes DMT right before you die, and this is what transports your soul off. And the only thing I have to say about that is when I heard the noise coming, I knew what it was. I didn't have to question. I knew it. It was familiar to me. I knew what was coming to me. It was the other side that was moving to my space. And when I started to put those two things together, I knew that this was something I had to do. And I remembered, when I had spoke with Will about it, he said, you got to lean into it. And so what I did is I was on my back and I was laying down, and at one point I felt a little sick, like I was going to throw up, and I didn't want to be laying down and throw up on my back. So I rolled to my side as the thunder was coming. I rolled to my side, and they give you puke buckets in case you throw up, and I shoved this bucket over my face, and I'm laying on my side with this bucket over my face, and then I was just like, all right, I'm ready. Like, let's do this.
I'm leaning in on it.
If we're gonna go, we're gonna go. But I'm gonna find out what is on the other side, because I've asked that question my whole life, and this was my opportunity to know. And as soon as I accepted that, I was gone. Like, it was just right through the tunnel of light, and here we go. And on the other side I went.
And this is Friday, and we're going to we'll speed up the experience. But so he does this again and asks for a little bit more of a dose?
Oh, yeah. The third night. No, the third night I did the same amount. I did the full dose right away. I didn't ease into it. And the third night, though, I had some very clear intentions. After night one and night two, on night one, I got understanding. All of my questions about my existential crisis, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? What's the meaning of all this? What is God? What is us? What is the framework of life? That was all answered for me. But I didn't know what to do with it. Like, now I know, great, but now how do I apply this? Well, night three was all about application and understanding. And when I went in there, I asked for healing physically, and then I asked for wisdom, I asked for creativity, and I asked for vision. I wanted to be able to clearly see the world that was around me, to understand it, to have the wisdom to be able to choose, and the creativity to be able to create the things that it was that I felt were right for me. And so the third night I took that dose, and almost immediately I went under so fast that night. There was no fighting the medicine. I was laying on the mat, and the next thing you know, these ruins started to appear, and they were moving in and out of each other like a snake twisting, but infinitely deep. And it was surrounded by these colors. And as soon as I seen it, I just smiled, and I was like, all right, let's go. And boom, I punched through the hole, and off I went.
One of the things that he had shared with me, he had said that in some of these experiences, that it was, how much do you want? I can provide so much to you, and that it was almost like, everything coming at once, and you were like, whoa, slow down. I don't know how to handle this right now. It was also about trying to dial it in. Dialing in too much, that's too much for me. Okay, that's too little. We got to find right where it is. He actually shared with me that he truly believes that you talk to God.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
100% without a shadow of a doubt.
Without a shadow of a doubt. You just know.
How do you know?
How do I know I'm in the room with you? I know. I can feel your presence. I see you. I know you're there. When that third night, I was put into what I like to call like a bubble. I believe it's somewhere in between here and there, like a space that's kept. It's a pretty common thing. It wasn't full of visions and craziness. There were no three-headed monsters or anything like that. I was in a very solitary place, and I was one-on-one with the presence. And as soon as that presence entered the room, I knew exactly what it was. It's an overwhelming feeling of love. There's a love like nothing that you can replicate here. It's a pure love. And as soon as you feel it, it's love, it's peace, it's joy. When people say that God is love, they have no idea how right they are.
So in this experience, what do you most feel calmness about? Or I think one of the biggest things that I love that you said was you now know your purpose. And what is it?
What is my purpose?
Yes.
To help and to heal other people.
You know how many times I've asked that question to people in life coaching and counseling and training? What is your purpose? And they all go, oh, that's too big of a question. And I said, well, you got to sit with it. And this incredible experience that you've had. You also said that you no longer, even though before you said, I probably was a little judgmental, was probably, cold with people. You don't have that anymore. You just have love for human beings.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that ayahuasca shows you, once you understand the oneness of everything, the interconnectivity that everything is, the energy that flows in us is the same energy that flows throughout all of Earth, right? Every plant, animal, insect, human being on this earth is a conscious collective energy that exists together, and then we together is the source, and the source is everything that is in the universe. We are just a fragment of that. And once you understand that connectivity, your responsibility to other people, it's easy to love somebody else as they're yourself when you realize that they are also a part of you. And it gives you the ability to embrace life in a completely different way because you understand the fabric and the meaning of it. So for me, my existential crisis was completely solved. I don't have to worry about cyclical depression anymore. I have purpose and reason for being here in a way that is tangible and understandable. It taught me to have grace with other people. It taught me to have grace with myself. It taught me to love one another and to understand and to help and to meet and to bring other people with their space and their place as far as teaching. It redefined my role as a teacher, kind of showed me that everything that I was doing was wrong and this is how I should be doing it. Mm-hmm. And, kind of redirected me in that space. And then, it gives you a sense of belonging. And you can't come out of this experience with anything other than that. Once you understand the collective and you understand your purpose in it, it comes out of there, and now you have a mission to help others. And the whole goal now is that everybody gets this same awakening, that they get this same enlightenment, because I want people to experience the peace that I have.
Absolutely, and that's what I want for all of you. And again, you never know what the stories are going to be when I have people in the blue chairs. And someone said, thank you, back-to-back powerful stories. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being real. Men can and should be. Thank you for fighting the demons and winning against them. Thank you for saying all the things that you've said. Thank you for the dark story that you overcame. Thank you for God for saving you and for the fact you are still here. Thank you for sharing the fact that you were probably in your mind more of an atheist, and now look at this beautiful transformation. I mean, when I tell you that there is hope and possibilities in each and every one of you, understand that. I see a lot of you just now signing on. Please go back. This is a powerful hour-and-a-half show. So much that you'll get out of this. Brian, who I believe is a brand new viewer, maybe of the show, he said, psychedelic shrooms healed me. I can't really explain it, but my experience has been eye-opening and spiritual. Also, I microdosed it. Really helped me get rid of PTSD, DMT, ADHD, BPD, anxiety and depression. And again, just powerful things that we haven't had a chance to talk about. And when I tell you that I'm going to bring so many different topics on the show, it's because we have to. Because there's so many people in all walks of life, but then all of a sudden we intertwine.
Absolutely.
I end every one of my shows with a devotional. So I'd like to see, it'd be interesting of what you collectively, the two of you together, what connects with you. Yesterday we did depression, so it's 100 days to freedom from depression. We did this one yesterday. Fear and anxiety, anger, shame, and then overeating. What are you feeling?
I'm feeling the shame.
I agree.
Oh, isn't that powerful?
Absolutely. I was going to say, it's because shame is a very
Yeah,
touchy subject.
shame is one of those root evils.
Okay. All right, everybody, go here with me. Listen, receive, and this is how we're going to wrap up the show. It's called Incoming. It's day 15 of 100 Days to Freedom from shame from our friend Stephen Arterburn. Be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. That's from Galatians 6, verse 1. So when you've made a terrible mistake and are feeling shame, there's a lot of hard stuff to deal with. Something that is rarely discussed is the pain of judgment and criticism that is hurled at you, often by fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Actually, in Matthew 7, verse 1, Jesus told us not to judge others, but that doesn't slow most people down. Are any of you getting chills that we're talking about judging? And I just talked about it's just powerful. Whenever my guests pick, I swear it's like, who picked this? Who really picked this? People are going to throw stones. You won't be able to stop this from happening. It's one of the most consequences of sin, and one we don't think about until it actually happens. The important thing for you is to resist the temptation to return fire. If someone calls you a hypocrite, you might immediately recall a time when that person did something very hypocritical. If someone speaks to you sarcastically, you could easily slip into sarcasm and fire a smart aleck remark right back at them. If someone gives you the cold shoulder, you might decide you're never going to have anything to do with that person again. These are common human responses, but they are extremely unhealthy. At a time when you're seeking healing and restoration, such tit-for-tat responses lock you into negative thoughts and negative feelings. You will be very wise to immediately forgive anyone who attacks you, for their sake, certainly, but mostly for your own. You desperately need a cleansing, and getting into a shootout with your critics will lead you away from it, not toward it. Be careful who you choose as your enemy, because that's who you become most like. Today's prayer: Father, remind me every day that your opinion of me matters more than anyone else's. Give me the strength to turn the other cheek when people attack me, and to forgive them the way you have forgiven me. Powerful.
Mic drop. Jeez.
Oh, right? I don't even understand how these get picked. It's a beautiful thing. It's a godly thing. That's all I'm going to have to say. Both of you, thank you so much for being real, for being authentic, for opening up, for being men to show emotion, for telling the dark and the demons, because now you've come out of it, and now there's beautiful light. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
And
Always a great experience.
I love the
Absolutely.
transformation. We've got many things to do together, right? There's
Absolutely.
a reason
Yes, ma'am.
why these paths continue to intertwine. And I don't know where God's taking us, but I am surely following wherever he wants to take me. Thank you, more importantly, for listening, for receiving the message. Please share and like and follow this, and understand that that's how we continue to impact the world. Go out and be anything you want to be in this world. But remember, before anything, be kind to everyone. God bless you.